Hey everybody, it's Mauler, and I'm finally getting around to a video on the medium SenetEr block. In it, we're going to compare the small block and the large block with the medium block and talk a little bit about housing levels. Now, all three blocks have a similar base. It is a 6-tile base with 3 tiles in between it and the main road. The small SenetEr block is a 6x6 square, and it holds 10 houses for a maximum population of 720. The large SenetEr block has a very large footprint, but it holds 19 houses and has a maximum population of 1,748. So starting from the common base, you construct it as follows. The internal dimensions are 8 squares, with 1 square for a future pavilion and 3 squares for a future courthouse. The medium SenetEr block holds 15 houses and has a maximum population of 1,140. I often will drop a house in order to put a scribal school or culture requirements. Surprisingly, this only drops the population of the block by 20 to 1,120, but more on that later. The basic services for the block are architect and fire, and if you're concerned about crime, the police. The block is designed for a courthouse, but it's expensive, and I usually put it in later and just start with the police station. A physician is important to keep everybody healthy and disease-free, and if you're close to the reeds, you'll need an apothecary. I usually put it in the spot reserved for the juggler booth, and I only use it if malaria is a risk for where the block is placed. Now, because every single one of these houses needs to evolve to a 2x2 house, you have to be pretty careful about how you place your housing down. Don't just put it down all in one fell swoop. Try to place them so each 2x2 square gets filled up individually and is separate from their neighbor. It's a little time consuming at the beginning, but it will save you time in the long run because you're not trying to manage the evolution of your houses. They will evolve neatly, and you won't have to be deleting any houses that have people in them in order to grow your houses to 2x2s. Now, I'll usually have a water supply down by this point, but I just wanted to talk about a little early game tip that you can use. This is a crude hut and it holds 20 people. When it gets water from a well or a water carrier, it will evolve into a sturdy hut, which holds 28. So you get a pretty good population increase for the houses that you put down just by supplying them with water. I consider the water supply an essential service and put it down at the beginning. I'll also put the tax collector down as soon as I am able. So I always feed my blocks when I think it's appropriate. Sometimes I delay, but I usually will feed them as quick as possible because it takes them up to meager shanty, which holds 36 people. It takes the block population up to 540. Unless I'm having a problem with desirability, I usually never see a meager shanty though, because by the time I give them food, they already have a god in the block. So since a priest has already walked past them, when they get food, they skip over meager and go straight to the common shanty, which holds 44. So my blocks will usually be at about 420 people with sturdy huts, or 660 people with common shanties. Now we're gonna give the Bazaar Lady a head start to get the pottery, but the next thing this block is going to need is entertainment. A medium SenetEr block holds a pavilion and a juggler's school. The reason for the duplication is I try to balance out the blocks that I use for culture. Each block standing alone has roughly the entertainment it needs to get a perfect culture rating from the lower levels of entertainment. We'll just do our final prettying up of the block by adding the plazas. And while we're on the topic of culture ratings, we'll put the dentist down. The houses are at Spacious Homestead, which holds 68 each. So the block at this point will hold just over 1,000 people at 1,020. To take it up to 1,140, you're going to want to give it beer and a courthouse, and that'll take it up to Spacious Apartments. This is how I usually leave it unless I need to raise my culture rating. It is the maximum this block will typically get at 1,140 people. If you want to see where I get all my housing information from, there is a very good website called Which Way to Thebes by Grumpus the Elder from the Heaven Games forums. I'll leave a link for it in the comments. We just performed my most common modification to the block, which is to give it a scribal school. I've also instructed the bazaar to buy linen and a second food, push the houses past common residence. A common residence holds a little more people than a spacious apartment, so even by losing the house to put the scribal school down, it only drops population of the block by 20 people from 1140 to 1120. You can see I've added some extra gardens around here too, because desirability is one of the major limiting factors for going past common residences. With linen and the second food, this should be an elegant residence. So you can see it's not worth giving the block the second food or the linen. It'll never have a second god, so you can't get to fancy residence. I generally use the large SenetEr block if I want to push things a little higher and save the expense of trying to force the medium SenetEr block. So here it is in a simplified format, so you can see the layout of the buildings. The modification you need if you are in an area with Martian reeds is to put in the apothecary in the place of the juggler's school. The most common alteration to this block is to add the scribal school. Gives a little bit more culture and only drops your population by 20. If I'm really in a pinch for culture, I will add a mortuary. It's a reasonable place to put one in a pinch. So here's the block with the housing placed. I hope you get to use this in one of your games, and come watch me use it in some of my games. Thanks for watching.